Welcome back, CSE 121 W1, to part 2 of string method practice. We're having lots of fun working through a string with our school name and doing different operations, different methods on them, and just seeing how we can manipulate strings. So we're going to keep doing that. Just to get familiar with this, we're using W3 Schools to kind of go through as a reference and find some of these things. And one of the last things I mentioned is alpha. Is something where it can actually find characters. Now I'm going to go in here. Now before we do that, this is P7. I'm going to copy this because we're going to still be going through this, and except it'll be P8. And I'm going to paste this, and I'll call this P8. Now right now it would just do the same thing, but we're going to loop through school, but we don't want to print out spaces like it did this time. And you could do if to print them. So you could say if I, if you think about this here, if you say if I is not equal to a space, you could print them out. Now that would work, I think. That's one way to do it. If you could say if I is not equal to a space, print them out. Let's see what happens. And that's what we want. So you could do that. There's the first one with spaces. This is the second one. And another thing you can do is they have this is alpha. Now I haven't used this yet, but it returns true. So that's another thing you could do here. Now it would work the same way. You could say if I dot is alpha, and let me make sure I'm doing this right, because I'm not sure if it's I dot is alpha or we're doing school dot is alpha and putting I in there. Let me just double check, because I may have this wrong. Is alpha. So we're doing is alpha. No, we're just doing the variable, so I think the way I have it is correct. I think we're doing I.isAlpha. Because you're getting true or false, you don't really have to put anything in there. You're looking through all of them. So that's checking if all the characters, but we're checking just I. So let's see how this works here. If we do if I.isAlpha, print I. And maybe we have to do school. I don't know. Let's see it. And it looks like we have Warren County. Looks like it does the same thing, so that works. That works the same way. And there's also a contains, but I'm not sure where that is. I'm not going to look that up right now. So you could use I.isAlpha, or you can do if I is not equal to a space, if you're just looking for space. But then again, how would this help? This would help if there's spaces, if there's periods and things like that. I'm not sure if, let's just say if we had a comma in here. I'll just throw this in real quick. I'm not sure if it'll count a comma. Let's see how this works. Warren County Community College. Okay, so it doesn't include a comma. So if you wanted to make sure there weren't commas in there and anything else, that's where is alpha would be a little bit more helpful rather than a space, because then you'd have to look for a space and a comma and all kinds of things like that. So is alpha is probably a better option here, because not only will it get spaces, but it will also make sure they're just letters and not any other kind of characters that are in there. All right, so that was P8. That was a lot of fun. We did an extra if statement in there. And let's see if we did this right. P8, and oh, there's more. There's more here. We didn't finish it. We have to print that to a new list without spaces. So we're going to append all the letters to a new list called school no spaces. And I wasn't sure. I thought we did a split in here, but maybe we're not doing a split. But this will work too. So we're going to append all the letters to a new list. And that would be the same thing as splitting, but I guess split's not in here. So we're going to do that. So see append. Append the letters to a new list named school no space. All right. So we're going to do that. So P8's a little more detailed here. And I guess P9 is the new list that we're going to print out. So in here, what we're going to do, not only are we going to print them out, but we're going to append them to a list. So how do we append? Now, is append part of a list or is append part of a string? I think it's part of a list. So let's go to list methods, because we could change a list. We can't change a string. Adds element to the end of a list. So that's how we add things to a list. So we're going to append, and let's just look at it. And we're going to append what we want. So it's the list dot append. If it's a method, you're using the list variable name dot the method and then putting what you want to append. So what we're going to append is going to be I, and it's going to be to a new list. We can't do it to school. So we're not going to do it to school. So what we're going to do for I in school, we're going to make a new list. So what we could do here is we could go right in front of here, and we're going to call it school no space equals, and we'll make an empty list. And we'll put that in front of there. School no space, and I think that's what I asked you to call it. New list named school new space. Now the easiest way to make a new list is just call it school no space and put empty brackets. So there we have it. It exists right now, but now what we want to do is we want to append I to that list. So we'll go here and put school no space, because it has to exist. It has to exist before going in here. So school no space dot, and then we're going to use append because we're going to be appending to that list, this new list. There's nothing in it, and we're going to append I. So it's going to go through the loop, and it's going to put all the letters in that list as a separate list. And you're not going to see anything right now. So if I do this, it's not going to look any different. Not going to look any different. That's where P9 comes in. So I'm going to go down here and just move to the margin and put P9 equals, and I'll print out the list, the new list, school no space. And what that should do is it should print out a list of all the letters in quotes after doing this. So this, it appends it to a new list. So all those letters are being broken up into a list. And there's those letters. And by the way, if you remember, we counted all the letters. There were 31, and there's 3 spaces. So if we printed the length of this list, I'm just going to print, I don't think you have to do this. If you just printed the length of a list of school no spaces, it should come out to 31 minus 3, which should be 28. Let's see. And there it is, 28. It's taken a long time there, a lot of letters to print out. So there's 28 letters, and we took out the 3 spaces. So I don't think we have to do that. So I'll remove that. Let's move on to P10. P10, print the variables as a list, sort it. So we can sort the list in order of the letters. Now this is kind of monotonous here, but just so you know how to sort, let's just go to Python lists and go to list methods. And there should be a sort method, sorts the list. Let's just see how it works. And you just sort it. And I think there's a reverse sort as well. So there's reverse equals true that you put in there. So we're just going to do those 2 things for P10 and P11, I guess. So we're going to sort it and then sort it in reverse. So we'll print it out and see what it looks like. So for P10, we're going to say equals, and then we're going to put print, and we're going to put school dot sort. So it's a list method. So we're putting the list, then the method, and then what it should do is put all these letters in order. And while we're at it, we can just go here, and it just says reverse equals true. This is how you do it the other way. So we'll do it that way too. Reverse equals true. We'll do both of them. That way we'll be done with these 2 right away. So reverse equals true. Although it's always good to see if one works first, but let's just try to get these 2 done here. And remember, it was reverse equals true. And you could put this together, and there's no quotes around true. And let's try it out. We have an error, line 26. P10 equals print school. Oh, what did I do wrong here? I called this school, and the original one was school, but this one is called no spaces. And this one is called no spaces. See, that's why it's good to do one first, because then you get an error, and then you're like, wait a minute, where did that happen? So it happened on this one because I didn't have the right variable. And there we go. So now we should have, oh, what's happening here? Print school no spaces. So it's not printing a sorted version of it. Let's check this out. Actually, I'm glad that happened. It's showing none here. And let me just see something here. If I do print, I do this all at one shot here. Maybe that's the problem. See, sometimes I don't mind stuff like this happening. None. See, it didn't like that. It didn't like printing it out all at one shot. So it's not printing out a list, it's printing out a method. I guess that's the issue here. If I had to think on the fly here, it's not printing out a list, it's printing out a method. So we can basically run the method and then print it. So that's what we have to do. Again, see, I should have waited to do this because now I have an error. But what we should do here is basically sort the list, our new list, and then print it. And then put P10 equals print. Because remember, we can change lists. Lists are mutable, so we can change them. So doing this will change it. It's just we can't print out a method. We need to print out the list. So that's the problem there. So we're going to print out school, no spaces. That should fix the problem with P10. So we're sorting it first, then we're printing it out. And there it is. And you can see it's putting all the C's. How's it sorting it? CCCW. Oh, and it's actually using capital letters first, sorting the capital letters, and then sorting the small letters, the lowercase letters. That's interesting. And you could certainly put them all in lowercase if you wanted to ahead of time, if that was an issue, but I don't know if it's really that that important right now. But it's good to know that it does sort capital letters first before it sorts lowercase letters. It treats them differently. And which makes sense because when we look for them, it doesn't treat a small c like a capital C. So let's try this for P11. And now you learn the lesson. Don't ever try to do 2 in a row. Wait, make sure it works first. And now we're going to sort reverse equals true. Click on that. And P11 is going to be printing that. So now we're resorting it in the opposite direction. And starting with all the lowercase letters from Y going up and to all the capital letters at the front of the alphabet. So that's working. So P11 is working. So our final thing here we're doing with P12, and you can see there's a little more detail here, but one of the things I put in here, and I thought was kind of interesting because you can have duplicates in a list, but what if you needed to get rid of duplicates from a list? And if you go to list methods, where's remove duplicates? Remove item with the specified value. I mean, you could go find C's and stuff. You can remove things from a list, but there's no remove duplicates. So how would you do that? Now, there could be a couple ways to do this, but one thing that I actually thought of, and I threw it in here just to kind of help us out a little bit, is something called Python sets. Now, there's tuples. If you ever use tuples, they're unchangeable. And I haven't really used tuples. What would you use them for if they're unchangeable? I don't know, maybe for days of the week, for months, ID numbers that can't change, anything like that. And so they're ordered, they're unchangeable. There's not a lot you could do with tuples. And I haven't really worked with tuples, but there's less you can do with tuples than you could do with lists. But sets, let me just go here to sets, Python sets. Now, what are they? I haven't used them a lot either. And they show up with curly braces. Tuples use parentheses. Sets use curly braces, and so do dictionaries. So I just want to point something out here that when we create it, we have to set it a certain way. Sets is duplicates not allowed. It's the important thing here. You can't have duplicates. So if a set can't have duplicates, that would be a way to remove duplicates from a list. So you'd basically take all the elements from a list, throw them in a set, and it'll wipe out the duplicates. Then you could put the set back into a list. And that's what we're going to do for this last thing. This is the big finale here of doing this. So I gave you some names here. You could change them, but I put set no duplicates and I put list no duplicates. That's what SND and LND is if you want to use those. And again, to create an empty list, you just use equals brackets. But to create an empty set, you have to use equals set. You can't just put parentheses and you can't just put curly braces. That won't work. So we're going to create something. It's like a constructor for set here. So you can't just use curly braces because it'll think it's a dictionary and it won't work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to print the list, school no spaces, without duplicate letters. And it says how? Oh, wow. And here's one solution is Python sets do not allow duplicate elements. So we're going to define a new set. And then we're going to loop through it, and we're going to add all the elements from the other list to that. So let's try that out. Let's do that first. So don't worry about P12 yet, but we're going to go here, and we're going to create a new set. And we're going to call it school, and let me make sure what I call it. School and SND, school set no duplicates. So we're going to take it from the school no spaces list. So school, I'll just do this and I'll put an underscore and I'll put set no duplicates. That's what that means. Set no duplicates. And we have to do it as set like this. We can't just do that. It'll think it's a dictionary. It will not do it as a set. So we have to do set like that and use parentheses, not actually, because it's a constructor, so we're not going to use curly braces. So we're going to create a new set, and then what we're going to do is we're going to loop through for I in, and we're going to do our other set here, and you could do school no SP. So we're going to loop through that, and then as we loop through it, we're going to append to the set. So we'll put school underscore SND, and we know how to append already. It's the same way you can append. And actually, can you append? Good question. Append won't work. Rather than do that and say it won't work, remember with lists and list methods, we have append. Now, if we go to sets and set methods, do we have append? No, but we have add. So we have to use add. So good to know. So we're going to add here. Otherwise, we would have just put append and we've got an error and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to put add. And what are we going to add? We're going to add I. Not one, I. So making a new set, and we're going to loop through our other one without spaces and add that. If you want, you could print it out. You could print out the new set. School underscore SND, and you could call it P12. Now we're going to have two P12s here because we're going to print out both the set and the list. So here's the set. We'll print it out. Now it shouldn't really look any different, but if you wanted it back as a list again, let's just see what this looks like. And there it is. Now here you can see it's a set because it has curly braces in it. Now it got rid of all the duplicates. So we still have a capital C. So if there were upper and lowercase letters, I don't think they would count as duplicates. I don't believe. I don't know if there's a way we can check here, but it will not have any duplicates. Again, I don't know if C could be in there or not. You may not. I guess you could go here and just add a C as you're looping it through or something. You could add a C to it and try it out, but we'll have to double check that as far as upper and lowercase letters. But for now, I know you want to get done with this, but there's no duplicates in there. So if there was a small C, maybe it'd be in there, maybe it wouldn't. I'm not sure. I'll double check. I won't leave you hanging on that one. So again, what we want to do now is actually make it as a list. So now that we have all the duplicates stripped out of there, let's put it into a list. So we can go here and do for I in. And now we're going to go through our new set. We're going to go through the set now. So we're going to loop through the set. So we're going from a list to a set back to a list. And for I in school SND, and what we'll do is we'll append to a list. Now, we cannot append to our other list. It won't work. So before I do it and then I get an error and I say, hey, this isn't working, you cannot do it. So you have to make a new list. That's why we're going to make a new list here, right in front of this. We'll make a new list. I'll even put a space, and I'll call this school underscore LND, list no duplicates. And to make an empty list, you just put brackets. And we're going to add it to this list. So that's what we're doing here. If you look at the instructions, we're creating a new empty list and we're putting them back in, and then we append them. So I did a P12 and I printed that just to make sure we were seeing the set, but we can print the list out again at the end. And now we're going through that, and what we're going to do is we're going to append school LND dot append, because we have to use append with a list. We use add with a set, and we're going to append I. And then at the end, I'll just copy this. This will not be part of the loop, so we'll move this back to the margin. I'll put P12 again, or P13. It should work with P12 because you're just redefining P12. But now for P12, we're going to print LND. So that should be a list without any duplicates. So that was a way to get list without duplicates. So let's run through that. And how do you know it's a list? Well, you could print out the type, but it has square brackets, and that usually indicates it's a list. So there's our list without duplicates. So that's our big finale there. So this is our set without duplicates, and this is our list without duplicates. And again, we went from sorting stuff and getting rid of spaces, and then finally getting rid of duplicates by putting them in a set. So that's how we got rid of duplicates. We used this set object that's in Python. And I've never used it before, but it's a good way to get rid of duplicates. I think you can use a dictionary as well. I think in the past I used a dictionary, but a set will work the same. And I think a set is a little more simpler to use than a dictionary, because a dictionary has key value systems, which has more to deal with. So that's all you have to do. So if you've survived through all of that, part 1 and part 2. Again, it doesn't look like much, but there's a lot we kind of sorted through here with lists and methods and operations and built-in functions and going backwards and removing stuff, and there's different ways of doing things. But if you got through this, hopefully you learned something about lists. We didn't do split yet, but we're going to use split on another exercise to split things up, because you could split up a string into a list. That's another way to do that. We added things by using a for loop, but you can split up strings into a list. And that's some operations we did with strings right here. Just one string. Started with one string and did all this stuff here. Had 12, 13 different print statements here out of this in the end, and did all this stuff with it. So it's just a way to kind of work with manipulating data and extracting information from data, which is part of data science. And this is very basic, but that's why we're starting this way first. So that's our set method practice. When you're done, when you did all this, just copy this, go back to coursework, go to Unit 9, and this is open right now. Now I'm recording videos, that's why you're not seeing it here. Here's string method practice. And I'll go here, and then all you have to do is add your comment, add a link, paste your URL, new window, save, and you're done. So that's string method practice. Hope you enjoyed that. And we're going to be doing some more kind of manipulation with text, with lists, and eventually with dictionaries, with text files, with CS files, as we start to dig into data just a little bit more.